This is a 2007 Honda Accord 4-cylinder, and I'm going to take you through a thorough step-by-step on how to replace your brake pads and rotors. First thing is that on the rotors here, there's a couple Phillips, and there's a couple indented holes where they go. You notice that if you buy new rotors, there's two sets of holes. Now if you put it in this hole, then the Phillips screw doesn't fit flush in there, so you want to use the beveled ones. Okay, so you're going to take an impact screwdriver, put it in there, and if you want to see which way it's going, take a little piece of carpet and push down on it. You can see which way it's turning. Sometimes it's not easy to set these to see which way they're turning, so I always push it down. And then what you do is you put it in there and take the tension off. Just turn it a little, take the tension off, and whack the back of it with a hammer, and that'll break it loose. Same thing when you put it back on, take the tension off. So you take those two screws out, or first of all, leave these two screws in for a second. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take this piece off. So in order to get this piece off, there's a couple 12mm bolt brackets here holding the emergency brake cable, and there's another one for a brake line. Take those off to give yourself some slack to take this off. There's a couple 14mm bolts for the guide pins here. You're going to want to remove those. And while you're removing those, if this little plate in back here is spinning, that's an 18mm. You can get a wrench or a pliers on there, an adjustable, and hold that while you crank those off. So you're going to take those off, and then you're going to slide this out. Okay? And before you even start this whole process, I want you to open up your hood and take the cap off of the brake fluid canister. That's going to give you, when you screw in the brake piston on the back here, then that's going to eliminate any pressure inside there that could damage something. So take that cap off and flip it upside down and just lay it on your canister so you don't get dust. Okay, so once these are off, your brake pads are going to slide off. After that, this thing's going to be off so that you can now take and crank in that brake piston cylinder in the back. There's a couple grooves in it, and if you have a tool like this, you can put that in there and crank it in. If you need to use this plate, because this thing will be off, this plate sits in the back of this, and then you can adjust it with this to make it tight and screw it in. I didn't have to use this plate. I could just put those in there and it's screwed in real easily. Okay, I've also seen people just take a screwdriver into the grooves, use the screwdriver shaft like that, put it in the grooves and just turn it like that, you know, pressing in and turning it. That works. I've seen that work also. Okay, once you turn the brake cylinder, the piston in the back, what you want to do is that groove, you're going to want to make sure that that groove is up and down like this, perfectly straight. The reason being is because the back side of this other shoe has a dimple in it. That dimple slides into that shoe slot. If you don't get that dimple into the shoe slot when you reassemble this, you're going to end up with uneven pads, and they're going to rub on your rotor, and the pads are going to wear out real fast, and you're probably going to get scuff marks on your rotor. Okay, and they're going to rub and probably make some noise. Okay, so now that you got this off, that's the 14mm. Okay, you want to replace your rotors, then you take the bracket off. The bracket bolts then are easy to get to because you have this off. Those are 14mm also. Unscrew those, take the bracket off, and then replace your rotor and put your Phillips back in here so that this thing doesn't wobble. Okay, now that it's not wobbling, then you can put your bracket back on. And then you're going to put your new pads back on. Again, you're going to want to make sure your brake piston, that slots up and down. And then this is going to slide really nicely, easily over here. And make sure also when you put the brake pads on, you use a little brake grease, just a little bit, just a smear on wherever the brake pads slide along these little, silver brackets here. So this is going to slide on real easily. You're going to mount those back up with the 14mm. Both your you're going to have the bracket on first. You got to snug those up first, and then these, the 14 millimeter, and then just a matter of putting that 12 millimeter bracket back on, and then you should be all set. While your tire's off and everything, you might want to examine your mud flaps here. Sometimes these screws are loose. You can take care of that. And okay, hope that helps in doing your brake work.